Good morning, and welcome to Rise and Thrive with Dr. J. Nicole, where we are rising in faith and thriving in purpose. I want to say thank you for joining me today. This episode is very close to my heart, and there's no way that I could have let the month of October go by without acknowledging that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I wanted to create a space, not just for education and tools, but for real encouragement, healing, as well as for truth telling. Mental health is often talked about in statistics and diagnoses, but I wanted to make this more personal. So, whether you're listening to this in your car, walking around your neighborhood, sitting in your living room, or maybe even lying down in bed trying to find some peace, I want you to know that you are not alone in what you're feeling. Especially for my brothers and sisters in the BIPOC community, we know the challenges we face, they look different. There's generational trauma and cycles, systemic barriers, faith traditions that can sometimes misunderstand mental health. These shape our experience. And yet, here we are, alive, listening, fighting, still rising. That's not small. That is significant. And I want to pause here and let you breathe that in. You made it to today. That's worth honoring. Too often we rush past due to survival mode. And sometimes that is what's required to get through a season. But there's something sacred about taking the time, taking that pause to reflect. Now, no one has told you lately, I see your strength. I see your perseverance. I see the way that you hold it together, even when life looks like it's falling apart. And at the same time, I want you to hear this. Thriving is possible. God didn't create us just to survive from storm to storm, to go from one to the next. He created us for joy, to find peace, and to live whole. Not to say that we won't have struggles, but because we know in Him, He's going to bring us through and He's going to make us better. We serve a God of restoration, a God of redemption, a God of miracles, of amazing things. So, in this episode, I want to hold both realities together. The reality is that life is heavy, and the truth is, on the other side of that, hope is still real. So, before we go further, I want to invite you to join me in a brief grounding exercise. And if you're in a safe space to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. And if not, just listen and breathe with me. So, let's start by taking a slow inhale through your nose. Just hold it there for a moment. And gently exhale through your mouth. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale. Hold, and exhale. Once more. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. Now, I want you to bring to mind one word that you want to carry with you through this episode. Maybe it's peace, hope, healing, or even rest. Whatever your word is, breathe it in as you inhale. And exhale any tension. Just release it all. As you do this, remember, you're not just a body moving through this world. You are mind, body, and spirit, fully seen and fully loved by God. Let's begin. When I work with clients, and sometimes speaking with friends and family, one of the things that I hear a lot is, I don't want to seem weak. This conversation around weakness. And I just want us to pause there, right? Because in many of our cultures, weakness was never an option, or weakness meant you were compromised, you were somehow vulnerable, and not in an emotionally vulnerable way, but like not safe, right? Like that, it could be life threatening. And so we're not talking about that, right? But we've gotten the messages to be strong, don't cry, don't let them see you sweat. All of that was survival. Survival was necessary. That's historically how we are here. We come from generations of people who have survived. But what got us through survival mode is not what's going to get us to thrive. And sometimes we're still holding on to coping skills and tools and defense mechanisms that really served us in prior seasons. But now they're doing us more harm than good. And so we've got to move from survival to significance. And a key part of that is unlearning. Unlearning the idea that therapy is only for people who are crazy. I know we've all heard that. I've gone through that and had to do education with clients before when sometimes it's appropriate to consider medication. I'm not crazy. Don't say psychiatrist to me. I've literally heard it, y'all. We got to unlearn the idea that medication is shameful. Sometimes it is what's needed. It's not needed for everyone. Some people have the ability to push through it, and others, they need faith therapy and medication. Okay. We have to unlearn the belief that prayer and professional help like therapy and psychiatry cannot go hand in hand. You have to remember that mental health is also medical. We take medications for all of these other things. And I'm not saying that you have to go along with whatever treatment plan is recommended, but I also want to encourage you to advocate for yourself because we do know that historically in this country, people have experienced medical mistrust for good reason. I'll say it that way. Now, I want to be, you know, create a space of transparency here for us. So some of us grew up in household where the answer to everything was really pray about it and keep it moving. And some families didn't pray. You just kept, you just keep it moving. However, prayer is so powerful. And I believe in the power of prayer with my whole heart. And sometimes God answers our prayers by giving us access to resources. That could look like doctors, that could look like therapists, that could look like podcasts, tools that help us live out his promise of abundant life. So if you grew up hearing these things like what happens in this house stays in this house, I want to gently challenge that, just gently. Some of what happened in our homes, in those houses, were hurtful. And some of what stayed in silence, it became heavy. It became a ball and chain for some. And God never designed us to carry that weight alone. Think about it. When Jesus healed people, he didn't just heal them privately, he often healed them in front of community. Why? Because healing was meant to be shared. Because testimony breaks chains. And every one of us have some sort of testimony to break change. And I'll be honest, right? I'll be honest. Stigma is not just in our families, it's also in our churches, it's in our workplaces, it's in our relationships and friendships amongst our peers. How many times have you heard, you don't need therapy, you just need more faith, or you just need to pray, you need to go to church more? Here's another one. Depression is just a spirit, you got to pray it out. Or something along those lines, right? Like you've heard that before. But scripture tells us that faith without works is dead. And that means pairing our prayers with action is not a lack of faith, but a fullness of faith. But also, mental health and faith, they go hand in hand. A lot of the principles in therapy are rooted in the Bible about the power of our words and speaking life over ourselves, right? And that our words in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it was, right? That speaks to the power that God modeled for us who are made in his image, that what we speak becomes, it is, and it was good. And so it will be good, right? So we have to remember that. So as I'm thinking about this, I'm also reminded of Galatians 6:2. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. That means that sharing our struggles is actually biblical. Asking for help is not a lack of faith, it's an act of faith. It's saying, God, I trust you enough to allow others to walk with me in this. Jesus didn't do all of the things by himself. Jesus had disciples, right? And he also told them, confess your sins to one another. So all of these things, it's about community. And here's something I want you to also reflect. What burdens are you carrying in silence because of stigma? Because you're worried about what people will say or think? What does this mean for your reputation? What parts of your story are hidden because you are afraid of being judged? I want you to really take a moment with that. You don't have to answer it out loud, but let that sit with you or journal about that when you have some free time a little bit later. And here's a powerful truth: there is freedom in naming it. Whatever that burden is, whatever that thing that is weighing you down, when we name the reality, we can finally start the work of healing. You cannot address what you won't acknowledge. It's that simple. We have to give name to it. Okay, so I'll share a moment on my journey. There was a season in my life where everything looked fine on the outside, and I was showing up, I was doing the work, I was smiling, I was pushing through, and to everyone else, it looked like I had it together. But on the inside, I was exhausted mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. There were days I could have had a full 8 hours of rest, and I still woke up tired. I would go through the motions, I would go through meetings, carry out my responsibilities and conversations, and my mind and my spirit were so drained, and yet and still had it to give to others, which for me, that was an indicator that I was working at purpose because God gave me energy for that. But I had to coach myself through it. And sometimes that looked like saying to myself, like, you can handle it, you got this, you're strong. Looking at the finish line, knowing that some of these things that I was dealing with was time bound. But the truth was, I was really not handling it. I was suppressing it. I was numbing it. I was disconnected from it. But what I didn't realize at first is that ignoring those signals from my mind and body, it was costing me. It was costing me my peace. It was costing me my joy. And I wasn't fully present with the people that I loved, or sometimes I couldn't be present because I just did not have it. I might have been a little distant or irritable, even just, sometimes even frustrated. And if I'm honest, I was really disconnected from God. Here's what I've learned: when our mental health is struggling, even our spiritual health can feel clouded. I was praying, I wasn't going to church like I should, I was worshiping online, but it wasn't the same. I wasn't really and truly locked in. And I know some of you are listening right now. Y'all might have been going to church and you understand exactly where I'm coming from, that you're doing all the things and still that feeling was showing up. And secretly you're wondering if you had anything left to give. What changed for me was a major realization, right? And of course I work in mental health and I believe it, but I had to live it. And that is, mental health is health. Just like we care for our bodies, we have to care for our minds. If I had ignored all of the things that I was experiencing, all of that exhaustion and the pain, that could have turned into something else, right? Like if we have chest pains, we go to the doctor. If we sprain our ankles, we go to the doctor. Now, I know there might be a select few that are listening to this that might push through that pain and think that it'll, if I get a little rest, if I wrap it and elevate it, I'll be fine, right? But when our thoughts and emotions are in pain, we can't just keep going past those. And that's what so many of us do. We will run ourselves into the ground until our bodies, our relationships, or even our spirits come to a screeching halt or force us to stop. Like sometimes God will bench you. That's 100% real. I've learned it. He will bench you and it's not punishment. Personally, I had to start making changes. Therapy was a big part of my healing. And some of you have already seen the series that I did on YouTube about going through divorce and what that healing process looked like. And therapy and journaling were huge parts of my journey of recovery and back to God and Him just restoring me and making me whole. Journaling, it really gave me the space to get my thoughts out on paper. And in previous episodes, we talked about this, right? Like you can process something up to 10 times when you write it. And the Bible also tells us to write it and make it plain, right? So there is power in writing. And then that walking. Those prayer walks allow me to connect with God in a different way, out of His creations and nature. and listening to the rustling of the leaves. Like God's soundtrack was outside. His presence was so loud and so quiet at the same time. And being able to just hear from him outside of the regular noise and community, it became a lifeline for me. Having safe people around me reminded me that I didn't have to fight this alone, that I didn't have to be strong all on my own. And I share this because sometimes what frees us the most is to hear someone else validate it and to say, I get it. That used to be me too. And if you've been silently battling with any type of mental health, whether that looks like depression, anxiety, grief, and that's something that none of us are exempt from, or even burnout, I want you to know this. You are not the only one. Your struggles do not make you less spiritual. And if anything, it's an opportunity to come into closer relationship with the Father. Your exhaustion, it does not make you less worthy. And your pain definitely does not disqualify you from God's promises. This is exactly where God meets us. He meets us in our lowest. And I like to call that space bedrock, not rock bottom, but bedrock. This is where we are most human. Psalms 34:18 says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So if your spirit feels crushed today, if it feels low today, if it feels heavy today, you are the exact kind of person that God is closest to. All you have to do is call him in. And I want you to reflect for a moment. Where in your life are you still pretending to be okay when God is actually inviting you to be honest? And I want you to take a deep breath and let that really just sit with you. Because healing often begins in the not pretending, but in telling the truth. Call the thing a thing. So now I want to shift you and introduce you to some tools, right? And grab a notebook if you have the ability to do so. But if not, just when you get to a quiet place later, get settled, you can always come back and access this. You can open up your notes app on your phone if you don't have access to pen and paper right now. So, more than just listening to this, I want you to practice these with me. So, these are tools that you can use at any time that life feels heavy. So, the first thing that I want to teach you is grounding yourself in the moment, similar to what we did earlier. If you're in a safe place, this is, do like we did in the beginning. You want to either close your eyes or do a soft gaze and then take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and count to four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath gently at the top of the four count and exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Feel your shoulders drop a little bit more. And one more time. Inhale through your nose. 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now check in with yourself. Notice how your body feels. Notice the shift, even if it's small. That's the power of grounding, reminding your body and your mind that you are safe in this moment and that God's breath is flowing through you. All right, the second tool I want to introduce you to is those tap in questions. So we want to do this daily, right? So write down these next prompts I'm going to give to you. What am I feeling today? So you want to name it. Are you feeling sad, angry, joyful, gracious, whatever it is? Sometimes naming it helps that negative thing, if it is negative, to lose power or it can give power. Second, where am I feeling it in my body and or being? So this is where you pay attention. Does it feel like a warm sensation in your chest? Is there tightness in your jaw? Are your shoulders relaxed? Maybe, it's your back, your jawline, but our bodies are always sending us signs and signals. And we've been taught and programmed to override them and keep going through, but we want to stop and take note of it. And then, what do I need right now? Maybe in this moment, you need some rest. Maybe you need to step outside, get some fresh air, and move your body around. Maybe you need to hydrate. But either way, give yourself permission to listen to that need and to name the need. I recognize for some people this might be a little more difficult because this is not something you're used to do. This goes against your automatic programming and it forces you to slow down, which is exactly what we want. We need you to slow down and give yourself permission to care for yourself. So, these three simple questions: what am I feeling? How and where am I experiencing it in my body or being? And what do I need? These three questions can transform the way that you respond to stress and emotions. All right. Now, this next one, this is my favorite, and we're going to have an episode coming up on this: boundaries. Boundaries are self care. So, for a lot of us, we've spent a lot of life not knowing what boundaries are. Let's be honest. And especially if you're a caretaker, a parent of any kind of sort, like you have to show up for other people. And some of us have been doing this since we were children, right? Showing up for everybody else and our needs coming second, third, fifth, or just last, whatever it is. And then we're depleted and there's no one left to pour into us. I want you to imagine, think of this like as holding like a pitcher of water. Water, this represents your energy, your time, your love, your resources, your talents, all of that. And so you're pouring, pouring, pouring. You keep pouring to everyone else without stopping to refill yourself. What will happen? The pitcher will be empty. It will be dry, maybe a couple drops. And boundaries are how we refill. Saying no is holy. Jesus said no. Like saying no is biblical. That's Bible. Rest is holy. You don't have to earn rest in spite of the programming that we've gotten through society that's been passed down intergenerationally. Here's a phrase I want you to try: no, not right now because I need to protect my peace. Here's another one: I'm sorry, I'm not available for that. You can even negotiate. Boundaries aren't always just like a no, but it's just like a not right now. And that might look like, I'm sorry, I can't do that today, but I have some time on Thursday. Let me know if that works for you. Right. So, like, you're letting people know that your time is also valuable and you are not overextending and overcommitting. And sometimes we burn ourselves out and then we're upset with other people. Couldn't they tell I was tired? But you still said yes. You're in the tired body and said yes. And now you're leaving it up to them to take care of you when you didn't take care of you. And please, please understand that no is not a rejection of others, but a protection of yourself. And if they have a hard time with that, this might be a relationship that requires you to do some exploration of if they're not able to respect that. Number four, the power of community. Healing happens in and through relationship. And I don't just mean romantic relationships. I want you to take a moment and think about a person, and some of you may have more than one, in your life with whom you feel safe. Someone that you can call when you're not okay. I want you to picture their face and hear their voice. Now, I want you to take a mental note or even write down to reach out to this person this week. Send them a simple text, and it could be something like this: I just want to say thank you for being in my life. Or how are you really feeling today? Because sometimes you got to check on your strong friends, right? Like they look after you, and sometimes no one's asking them, or you're that strong friend. But express gratitude to that person for being in your life. And you can say more than that if you feel led to do so, right? Because sometimes people don't get thank yous, and they're not necessarily doing it for the thank you, but still a thank you goes a long way. That's a way of you depositing back into someone's jug or pitcher that has been pouring into you. This is an action to, connect deeper with them. And it's a reminder to both of you that you're not alone. Moving on to number five, we want to limit the noise. I want to challenge you this week. The next time you scroll on social media, notice how your body feels after 5 minutes. It doesn't matter which platform you're on. Pay attention to how your body feels. Do you feel encouraged? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel drained, irritated, or are you comparing yourself? And if it's one of the latter, maybe you need to unfollow or mute some of those accounts. Those things are taking withdrawals from your energy, and your energy is sacred. And you want to replace them with pages that make you feel grounded, uplifted, and closer to who you've been called to be. Those things are going to help fuel your purpose, right? And so your feed should feed you. And I've seen recently you can change your algorithm on TikTok. I stumbled upon this and it was so amazing. But then it'll open up a screen and it'll show you the categories that the algorithm is showing you. If there's anything that you don't want to show up anymore, you can unclick it. And actually, it gave a spectrum. So you can say how much or how little of it you wanted to see. I thought that was super dope. So you do have control, but your algorithm is a reflection of you. So whatever you're staying and watching, you're sending a message that you're enjoying that content. And so you're going to get more of that from the algorithm. So just know that. Be intentional about what you're consuming and what you're not. That quick swipe away, it sends a message to the algorithm. Enough about the algorithm, though. Remember that faith is your anchor. Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7 reminds us, be anxious for nothing. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. I want you to take a moment right now. Silently present one thing to God. It could be your worry about finances, your family, your health, or just the happiness of life, because Lord knows it's a whole lot of chaos going on. But name it. Name it in your heart. And then I want you to release it into God's hand. Take a deep breath and say quietly to yourself, God, I trust you with this, and name it. And when you have time, I want you to pair this prayer with practice. That looks like therapy, journaling, rest, one or all of the above. Those are not signs of doubt. Those are signs of faith in action. And we know that faith without works is dead. And before you go to sleep at night, right? Like this is you have an opportunity that I think a lot of us miss, having a nighttime routine. Here's a simple practice. You can lay down and put your hands on your chest and take 3 deep breaths. And as you exhale, say these words: I am safe, I am loved, I am enough. And let that settle into your spirit as you rest, knowing that peace is possible. If you're listening to this and you're not in the valley yourself, maybe God is positioning you to be a support to someone else who is. And sometimes the biggest ministry that we can ever do is to simply show up for somebody in their hardest moments. And here are some ways that you can help them. You can do regular check ins, right? Don't wait until someone posts something alarming on their timeline or it's a subliminal post or any of those things. A text that says just, hey, you're on my heart today, that could go a very long way. I know I've benefited from it, and I know that I've made an impact by doing the same with people. And notice I didn't say, how are you, right? How's your heart today? Or how are you feeling? Because most of us are going to get that automatic, oh, I'm fine. And how are you doing is also not a question you want to ask, because that implies that you always have to be doing something and you don't. Rest is responsible. Rest is needed. Asking about someone's heart, that gets deeper. That gets closer to that door of honesty. Another thing that you can do is listen with presence. When someone does open up, fight the urge to try to fix it. Sometimes people just want to be heard, and this might be the first time that they've talked. And if you interrupt, they may not get an opportunity to finish expressing. They don't have the ability to yet say, I just need you to listen. But once they break that silence, it's so healing for them. And sometimes, like I said, they just need to be heard. They need a safe space where they can just release. They've been carrying so much, and to listen without judgment is going to be a critical part of that, right? Now, if appropriate, I encourage you to be curious if they are open to you asking questions. And you may say, hey, may I ask a question? And that gives them the option to say yes or no, right? Now, as you're listening, I want you to encourage them and not push them, because you might hear some things that may lead you to believe that they would benefit from therapy. But we're not going to say, oh, you need therapy. Try saying something more like, I found therapy very helpful, but you'd like me to share a resource with you. Or you could even say, have you ever talked with anyone about it? So even that, you're not going straight to therapy. Like it gets there, but it's just like a softer landing, right? And you can hear the difference in that. One feels very directive. It feels like pressure. It's like you're telling them what to do, which is disempowering, actually. Like if you're asking them the question, they then get to decide. They then have to reflect on what their needs are. So that feels like support. And they can say, you know what? You're the one that encouraged me. You're the one that made me stop and think about it. Thank you for that. I needed that. Another one is respect differences in healing. Healing looks different for everybody. For one person, it could be therapy. Another person, it might look like journaling and even in a different season. Because I've been in seasons where I needed one, the other, and both, right? And for someone else, it could look like getting involved in community. It could look like movement, whatever combination. But do not dismiss anybody's path just because it doesn't look like yours. You might be able to share what worked for you. That doesn't mean it's automatically going to work for them. So just take a moment and imagine someone that you care about. They're standing in front of you, they're carrying this heavy backpack. That backpack is filled with grief, it's filled with anxiety, it's filled with trauma and all things they never said out loud. You can't take that backpack off for them, but you can walk beside. You can help them to adjust the straps. You can remind them to rest when they are tired or support them in taking it off. Because sometimes it could be so heavy that it's too much to take off with one hand, or sometimes they may be too emotionally weak to take it off, where they might need you to help them remove it. That's what supporting others look like. And this matters because, as my good sis Kamanya said on a prior episode, every interaction is an intervention. And this is not empowering you all to think that you're mental health specialists, but you do have the power to create a powerful intervention for someone. This could be your smile, your kindness, your patience, that listening ear. All of those things matter. You may be the reason that someone decides not to give up on that day. You may be the voice that reminds them that they are worth the fight and that they are worth fighting for themselves, even if no one else in their life has fought for them. And scripture reminds us in 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. Building each other up is holy work, y'all. Maybe ask yourself, who is God calling me to check in on this week? Whose name keeps popping up in my mind? Don't ignore that nudge. That's assignment. It's not by mistake. Who do I need to pray for this week? And you can talk to God and get confirmation. But I want you to do that, right? Check on your people and don't ignore those nudges. As we close, I want to slow down and leave you with a reflection. Where in my life am I still pretending to be strong when God is calling me to be honest? Pretending can look like smiling when you want to cry, saying yes when you desperately need to say no. And we know that is Bible. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Carrying that load alone because you're afraid of being a burden is also not okay. Give it to the one who can carry it. And now I want you to take one small step this week to nurture your mental health or to support someone else's. It doesn't have to be anything big. Sometimes it's scheduling that therapy appointment that you've been putting off. Sometimes it's setting your phone down for an hour to rest. Sometimes it's reaching out to that friend you've been meaning to check on. Take a moment right now and think about your first step. Don't just think it, speak it out loud and write it down. Naming it gives it power. Speaking it reinforces it. And we know that when we speak it, it is so and it is good. Okay? And now I want to affirm you. I want you to repeat these words after me, whether it's out loud or in your spirit. I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of healing. I am not alone. My story matters. I rise in faith and I thrive in purpose. Now take a deep breath and let those words sink into your heart. If this encouraged you, I want to ask you to do two things. First, I want you to share it. Share it with at least one person. You never know who is silently struggling or needs to hear this. You could be the reason that they hold on one more day. Second, I want you to engage, whether that looks like if you're listening on one of the other platforms, leave us a 5-star review and rating, right? Leave us comments. Make sure you're subscribing on whatever platform you're listening to so you don't miss any episode. We want this message of hope to be amplified. It helps more people to find this podcast and to join the community of rising and thriving together. Before we close, let me remind you, taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind is not selfish. That is stewardship. You are God's creation and you are worth caring for. Just as you nurture your body and your spirit, your mind deserves that same care. So until next time, we rise in faith and we thrive in purpose. Be gentle with yourself this week. You are loved, you are seen, and you are never walking this journey alone. I love you and see you next week.